Yeah, thought it would be a crowd, I kept them out of it, but I'll sit over here. Big crowd, we're gonna pull the chairs out. Big chairs.
I bet you will have.
Where are the chairs?
Probably spread.
Yeah, well, you know, I can bunch up.
David, we were through this once a year and a half ago.
It's not with me, so, okay.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right, first things first, the minutes from the last meeting, the 27th. I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
Second?
Hearing any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Bring that to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I have the report from Mr. Bond that is supplied and so installed mouse page. This we have mice. And met with our custodian and our appraisal. Okay, that's good. All right. Dave, we've got a few, I don't want to start with our friends from Peru because
Yeah, well, I
can't get here. We said 7:15. So.
Basically, I just wanted to let you know that that weight limit sign is gonna be put up on Kirshner Road.
That's great news, David, thank you. I think for everybody else here, you know, I'm trying to get Hinsdale to put up a, you know, restricted weight on Lots Road, at least down to the Dalton spot. And so we just said, put up a sign at the corner of the Main and Kirshner, so.
It'd be the-
Because I think all the local truckers know already, but, you know, so this way now, and I guess Ray Hunt too, we could put up a sign, so we're kind of done. Is that, all right, so, anything else?
Not at all.
Are we ready for Tuesday night in the West?
Absolutely.
Fun, fun, fun.
You're saying that's what
I hope so.
Yeah, and you know.
It's easier to plow.
This one
That's what it
didn't
is.
predict
It's
it
false.
today. Were you guys prepared for this today?
This
Oh,
here
it's
was,
snowing this morning.
I thought it was gonna be adjusted.
Yeah. Because the roads were as bad this afternoon as they've been.
Very slippery. Actually, I've seen pictures.
I will tell you, coming up Washington Mountain Road,
Mhm.
try to move behind the Kia. They don't have much pulling.
No weight, no traction, no.
It's all in the tires.
Oh, we got a few minutes. I went to the third Thursday dinner and heard a presentation on the Community Preservation Act, which about half of the communities in the state have adopted. It's a very attractive program in that although it's mostly funded out of tax monies, that is, we would have to adopt this, you have to put a surcharge on property tax, which coming out of the gate sounds like a really bad thing to do, but you can exempt the first 100,000 of property values, and you can make other exemptions for low income. But what you do get is matching funds from the state, up to 100%. set aside is. And these funds can be used, they could have been used, for example, to do refurbishing on the town hall. They could be used to, on our old town hall. They could be used, I assume, for the cemetery as well. For any kind of project, many of it for the town park, many things that we might want to do and have to appropriate money for, we could actually appropriate money through this process. I think it bears looking into some more, and because I think, although, like I said, it is a surcharge on property taxes, what it does is gives us a fund for use in one of either the historical buildings or recreational or open space, so I think it might be worthwhile looking into. Yeah,
Is the surcharge a uniform surcharge, or is it
yes,
it's not a change in the tax rate?
No, they recommend 3%.
3%?
3% over the tax rate. So if you're paying $1,000 in property taxes now, it would be $30.
If you're paying 2,000, it'd be $60.
Paying
So it's not
$60.
uniform.
But, yeah.
It's
but-
effectively an increase in the tax rate.
It's effectively an increase in the tax rate, which, again, makes it, you'd think that would make it a non-starter. But you can exempt the first $100,000 of property.
And that was my other question, does that work the screwy way that the personal property tax does?
And what it would do would be to drive the assessors crazy, since that's one of the things that did come out, so towns that have adopted it. It does present some difficulties that way.
But,
A lot of towns have voted it in.
but that makes it even more progressive too.
Yes, it is a progressive, we could use it for document preservation in the old town hall for some of our, we use it for preservation of some of the historical artifacts we have here in town. We might, one of the things that occurred to me is we might use it to acquire those parcels in North Lake that we don't own and turn that whole area into a recreational area, but that's, so, anyway, I think it's worth pursuing the extent of getting, providing more information to the full-time people, and maybe putting it on the ballot. We're gonna have an awful lot of stuff on the ballot this year. The MPO, Mike and I both went to the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Transportation Advisory Committee last Tuesday. There wasn't anything really of relevance to us. We got the Massachusetts MassDOT planning documentation and their preliminary capital plan. And what else did we do? We'll file that one too. You guys want? And the interesting thing to me was that the Washington Mountain Road was not on there because it falls under a separate budget from MassDOT. So.
We're not yelling from the rooftops.
We're not yelling from the
We don't want
rooftops.
to draw attention to it.
We're just kind of want to keep a low profile about it until it's done, and we can throw it.
Is it gone to bid yet?
No.
No, I guess there's.
It's in the governor's budget. It's got to get approved by the House and the Senate.
That could,
Probably around.
that could be
It's like
August.
in March.
Well, yeah, that's what the schedule says, it could be August.
Didn't hear back from Comer, nothing new on Cross Place, or the cemetery. We got a bid for the computer upgrade from John. You guys see this?
I saw it.
He's looking for $2,000. He's looking for about $2,000 to, what's that solution? I think it's gonna be about upgrades, conference licenses, Office Pro for 4 computers. I'm not sure, is that in addition to, or is
I
that?
think it's two separate bids for two separate.
Yeah, this is the Windows XP upgrade, this is software and accessories, so it's gonna be about $3,500. I don't know that we have one, they have to, $3,500 for appropriate, to upgrade the.
That's John and the software?
Yes. You wanna take a look at it?
Yeah, make a copy of it.
Yeah, make a copy, because I don't know the internet in select board, or, well, I guess that would fall under the building maintenance, so we should get that. But just take a look at it, see if it is. It's in that nether region where it may not, I don't know if it's enough to bother about separate warrant item, but, you know, the maintenance items. Anybody who was here not for building term discussion has something, I guess?
Even though
I
I'm
should have known that, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay, I'm on a different subject than they are. I've placed 3 phone calls to the town in reference to the license and permits for Bucksteed,
Right.
and I haven't received a return phone call, and I
It might be because Jody's been that sick.
okay.
All we
Is
do
that something-
apologize.
Is that something that I need to come to town hall, or can they be mailed to the judge directly?
I don't see why they can't be mailed.
Okay, just, I have better things to do with my Monday nights.
Really?
I do, I'm sorry, no offense.
There's
Unless
no
you had-
football.
unless you had cookies or something.
There's no football anymore.
After Super Bowl, why would you want to watch it?
I enjoyed it.
The license and permits for Bucksteed. Oh,
Yeah, okay, well, if they're ready, maybe take it to them.
so they're all in place as far as you all know?
Yes. We all know we've signed up.
Great, I'm done torturing you now.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna miss you. We're gonna miss you.
Oh, thank you, I know, I miss you guys too. I'll find some other reason to
There
say.
you go.
Okay.
I know.
Two little things.
Yes, okay.
Two little things. I attended the executive committee of the League of Selectmen of Berkshire
Oh,
County.
yeah, Berkshire.
Tentatively, we set up the next dinner for April 22nd at Christie Farms. It's not a big event, so
Okay.
sometime in late April, we'll have our next dinner.
Okay.
Not sure where. And the other thing is, I want to throw this out to everybody, even the Peru folks. February 25th at 7 p.m. in Essex will be the 7-town meeting for the school. And to say the least, it's going to be a very ugly year. If we hold the assessments at 4.5% increase at level funding, we'll still be almost $1 million short. So there's going to be some heavy, hard decisions to be made.
Any possibility of expanded funding from the state?
No.
We've gotten, you know, it looks like we're getting expanded funding for, you know, 80 municipalities, so.
Yeah.
Well,
For the state,
not the unrestricted aid.
Not the unrestricted aid.
Chapter 70's got an increase.
well, Chapter 70 got an increase, but they decreased Chapter 71, so it was like almost a one.
Yeah.
So anyway, the school district's in dire straits, and we're gonna need help to decide on what we're gonna do. We're looking at possibly 16 positions being left.
You can count on Dalton.
Huh?
You can count on Dalton.
We know we can.
Yeah. So there is a 7th town meeting on the 25th at Messick.
At 7 p.m.
Anybody, that's the first thing I want to attend that. Okay, we are at about 7:15. We have Kevin Cahill and Kevin Peru here, and they've asked for some of our time to talk to us about the development of wind turbines in Peru. You represent a group called the Peru Concerned Citizens. Right. The floor is yours.
Just want to just give you all a copy.
For everybody? or-
I have enough for the 3 of you, I think.
Yeah, just here, we weren't sure how many,
Okay, well, we can, introduce the
There's
others.
concerned people.
Take this copy.
No, that's,
The other guy.
I know him well.
Great, I lost my other.
I get his phone call.
Oh, no, that's
I
it.
give him the number.
How many pieces you got there?
Should be 1, 2, 3, and I lost.
Two packages.
I'm sorry, I did.
You did.
My name is Peggy White, I'm from Peru, and I'm, as they said, I'm representing the Peru Concerned Citizens. Kevin Cahill and I have been going around to all the surrounding towns to talk to them about concerns we have for the plan that's currently proposed with a special permit and a variance in Peru for 5 industrial wind turbines. And these turbines will be about 500 feet tall, which is equivalent to a 50-story building. And this is just the sort of beginning of the story for the county. As you know, the governor has an agenda for clean energy, and before I got involved in this project, I think every speech people seem to start with this. I would have said that I was surprised that I'd be standing here now talking to people about my concerns for wind turbines. I was always a proponent of alternative energy and very concerned about carbon footprint, but as we've learned more and more about wind turbines, they really don't improve the carbon footprint, but actually increase it and are not that efficient. Berkshire County has potential for 562 turbine sites, and at present time there's 36 between Brody but at the present time there are functioning turbines, and as we've heard from many people, and we say the most expert witnesses we have are those people that are living within very close proximity. So people that are living in Clarksburg in Florida are having problems.
Can I ask you one
oh,
quick
yes.
question, just to put it into
Yeah.
perspective? My understanding is the wind turbines that are in Hancock are 300 feet tall, is that true?
3 something, I'm not sure the actual.
340.
So you're talking about another 150 feet higher.
The ones that they're proposing for Peru are twice the capacity of what the ones in Hancock are. As the technology advances, it's, they're making them bigger and bigger. If they put them in Peru, it'll be the biggest ones in the state.
Was that the tower height or the total height?
That includes total height.
To the tower.
The blades are 137 feet. So
So the 500 feet is
to the top of the blade.
the top of the blade.
So it'd be the turbine and then the top of the blade. So certainly one of our concerns is that for the Berkshires overall is that our best resources are natural beauty, and that's what brings people here, that's what draws tourists, that's what draws prospective employers and businesses, is they have to offer small towns that have a rural, unspoiled quality, and certainly that is a real benefit that we have to offer. And even though individual towns, and I know Washington has a bylaw about tower height, that these turbines would fall within the 3-mile radius of the Washington border. And so some of the paperwork that I've given them includes some property value studies. So our concern is that based on different property value studies, it can have an impact somewhere between even 2 and 5 miles of up to 25% drop in property value. And so that's a significant loss in revenue for towns, not just for Peru, but all the surrounding towns. And the other issue that we certainly want to talk about is the health impacts. So health impacts have to do with several factors of the turbine. One is the flicker effect. So as the blades rotate in there and the sun is behind them, then you get a strobe effect that can go into people's homes. And then the other impact is sound, and there are 2 qualities of sound. There's this thumping kind of unnatural sound that's very different from road sounds and what we're used to. And then the other type of sound is what we call sub-threshold sound that can travel up to 5 to 10 miles. And that's a type of sound you don't hear, but creates a vibration and can get into buildings even with closed windows and kind of vibrates. And together, the health effects of this the sound causes issues like nausea, headaches, dizziness, and one of the primary issues is sleep disturbance, which is the impact of that's well documented in literature. So we have concern for people that are going to be within close proximity just for their health, and then the other issue is the wildlife impact, which has on several levels. Many people have heard, and it is true that birds, can have impact with the turbines. Bats get affected by barotrauma. Basically, it's a pressure issue when they fly close to the turbine. And I think it's kind of interesting that the developer did a study and said, well, there's no bats on that mountain, but there's nothing that would be drawing the insects. Once the turbines are there with the warmth and the light, insects will get drawn there, and so bats will get drawn there. But bats get affected, and then when we destroy our ridge lines, both with not only the construction of the turbines, which involves blasting the tops of the mountains, it also, you have to have pretty significant infrastructure to be carrying a 7-ton blade that's 137 feet long. So they have to build roadways up to this, and when you start to fragment the ridge lines, it really impacts the wildlife, and so they start to migrate down. And the ridge lines are their sanctuary. That's where they mate, that's where they feed, that's where they nest, and so when you start to blast and affect the ridge lines, the wildlife really loses their place of refuge. And the impact of blasting also can cause problems with wells and the aquifer. The tops of the mountains are like the sponge for our wells, and so when you take those off, then you end up with stormwater runoff, and you don't have that seepage coming down, so people's water can be affected. And one of the other just issues that towns in the surrounding area have to think about is that first responders may be called because in the 500-foot tower there are accidents can happen. They can be struck by lightning, they can catch on fire, and so surrounding towns may be called, so that's just something to bring towns in awareness. Just the other piece about wind turbines that are one of the main motivators for the developers is not the highest priority for them is to generate federal production tax credits. So it's our federal tax dollars that are being given to the developers, and their priority is not necessarily in producing the wind energy, but it's to generate these federal tax credits, and then they can turn around and resell the project and somebody else can reap that benefit. So this is our federal tax money. And Ed, as you said, there are so many other ways that our federal tax dollars could go to promote, a better green footprint. And lastly, we're here because concerned, as in Peru, we actually had wind turbine bylaws that were written almost 10 years ago before we knew a lot about them. Technology has really changed a lot in that time, and so we did write bylaws that protected our town. And so that's why this project was able to get as far as it is at this point. So we know that you have some protective bylaws just on the height of a tower, but there are many other factors that include things like setback from property. In Peru we have, what, 100? Setback, how many houses are going to be within the 1 mile?
No, I don't know, 60 or 70.
60, so we have 60 or 70 homes that are around Garnet Lake that are fairly, some of them, higher value homes, and these people are going to be very affected. One thing I wanted just to read a quick quote. What's happening in Berkshire County is happening in many places, so certainly as we've learned more, we've had contact with people in Vermont and Falmouth, other parts of the state, and I sent a topo map of the 5 turbines to a woman who is the executor of the Vermonters for Clean Energy, and her quote to me was, this is more like what is happening in the Florida mountain neighborhood, and she said, this is, in Vermont we don't have people this close, and still people are being severely damaged. On observation, I've been reviewing maps of the Vermont sites, and they are all on the edge of town, with the primary residential areas not affected. I can guarantee you that people will have their sleep disturbed, complain of headaches, ringing in their ears, nausea, and inability to live in their homes. Not everybody, but enough that this site would be a disaster. And that was from someone who's dealing with this in the Northeast Kingdom in Vermont.
Well, I was just going to add, we actually presented some maps here to the select board up here, that this is actually from the state's websites, and you probably can't see it here, but this is the state of Massachusetts. The turbine locations that they've identified for the 20% renewable energy that the governor's administration is pushing for, they're in Berkshire County. There's, out of the total of 631 that they've identified as potential wind turbine sites on state land in the state of Massachusetts, out of that 631, 562 are in Berkshire County. If that helps to ring a bell. They have, I just did some quick numbers here while we were sitting. They have 21 in Washington that are purely on Washington state, inside the town boundaries on state land in Washington. And there's 59 in combination with the surrounding towns. And the details are on one of the other pages here that you can go to the state's website. They actually have an interactive, which I gave these folks as well. It kind of shows you the locations. You can figure them out for yourself where the high wind speeds are. These are potential, not to strike fear into anybody, they're potential. But what's happened in the past 5 years, the state has been trying to get what's called WESR, which is Wind Energy Siting Reform Act, in place, so that the state in Boston gets to determine where's the appropriate locations to site wind turbines. And with that, what's going on right now is that they've gone, when they've gotten shot down by the legislator, they now have the DPU that's out trying to do that. They just had a public hearing, it was at BCC just last week, that they're asking for comments from people who may or may not know anything about wind turbines. Certainly before I started looking in Peru, I didn't know anything about it. To come out and ask those kind of people that kind of question just doesn't make any sense to me. What the feeling is that what they're going to do is they're going to push this forward and they're actually going to get the laws in place where the DPU is the one that's going to be cited. That's what the fear is. They've done all the engineering studies already where the high wind speeds are, where the turbines are supposed to go. And if they do, Berkshire County won't be the same. That's what we're seeing. The other thing that I printed out here for you guys is 2 and a 3 mile radius from the turbines that are proposed in Peru currently, the application that we're sitting with right now, and the impacted areas, or how far out that they come into Washington. We have a ton of information that a whole number of people have come up with Peru Concerned Citizens, along with a bunch of other ones in the town of Peru. One of the things that we found out, unfortunately, which is what's happened in almost every other place that the turbines have gone in, it divides the community big time. You get offers of money, pilot payments, which in any of the small towns, if you get $150,000 to $200,000 annual payment from a commercial development, it sounds really good up front. So you get the people that are jumping on board that want the money for the tax base for possibly reduction in property tax values. And on the other side, you got the people that may live close to them, the people who are impacted by it. Currently in Peru today, we have no less than 4 houses that are on hold around Garnet Lake from being built, from people who bought the property to actually have retirement homes. And in conversation and talking with them, they've actually put any of their development of those new houses on hold, which impacts the local economy, certainly for that. Our property, mine personally, I'm on Middlefield Road. Our house went on the market before the wind turbine thing was an issue whatsoever. My wife and I are looking to downsize. We have a very big house. We've had 2 people look at it in the past 9 months. And both of them, the first question out of their mouth was, where is it in relationship to the wind turbines? It impacts property values directly. If our house, which we've lowered our house, we're down now to $48 a square foot less than the average house sells for in the town of Peru and Hinsdale. I'm not sure how much more we would want to go lower to sell it, but that's a substantial, that's like $190,000 off what the actual value of the house should be selling for. Can you blame it on wind turbines? I don't know. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to get out to the adjoining communities so that everybody's aware of it. If you do or don't have wind turbine bylaws, we can highly recommend that you do go from it. Berkshire Regional Planning Commission actually has a model bylaw, zoning bylaw for, commercial wind turbines. That I've looked through it, and from what I see, it seems to be pretty good. Our town did not follow it. And from that, we actually can have 660-foot high towers to the tip
On our bylaws.
in our bylaws. 700, well, to 1.5 times the height of the, maximum height of the turbine to the next adjoining property, which is way too close. Way too close. We actually have property that's 760 feet or so from where the wind turbines are going.
What's the exact status of the project now? Is it approved? Is it going forward?
It's, what had happened is, the first thing that happened is the developer come in back last June, and he met with the planning board. They tried to change our zoning bylaw for the noise level specifically. They tried to raise it. That's not what you may have read, but that's exactly what was taking place. Our bylaw actually showed for 40 decibel. They wanted to raise it up to 45, which is substantial when you're out in the quiet zones here. That got shot down. They needed 2/3 majority of the people that were at the vote for that. That got shot down. A bunch of people then, which were just starting to find out about it, got together and went back, tried to get a moratorium so that we could get better informed on what are the best, what is it that the bylaws really need to be to bring wind turbines in. That we missed by, I think it was 18 votes, or 20 votes, I think we missed. Largest turnout in the town, both of them were the largest turnout of voters in the town ever for those two meetings. The day after we had the moratorium, or no, it was before the day after. It was
The day the petition was
Yeah,
submitted.
the day the petition was submitted to the Board of Selectmen, the next day the developer applied for a special permit with variances. He had like 6 variances. And one of the variances was the very thing that was just denied, that the zoning bylaw changed. They wanted to up the level of the decibels again. From that, we've had numerous meetings with the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, because of the variances and stuff that are needed. There were questions that were presented to the developer back in November from our group, 1 or 2 of the other groups, and some of the lawyers that are involved. We haven't heard anything back from the developer since November. They've asked for one extension that I think it was up in the middle of January. The second
Has the developer bought the property?
No, he's got a lease. He's got a lease on 300 acres, right up above Garnet Lake. It's right off Middlefield Road. So we don't know where it's at
Still
right
in
now.
limbo.
It's in limbo. It's in limbo.
A couple of years ago, we were talking about this in our capital planning meetings, and, when I first looked into it, I got these same maps and said, wow, we've got all these great sites in Washington for wind power, and then as I looked into it, and some of the health concerns, and some of that, not even property value, but the health concerns, I thought it was probably not the best thing for the town, but in my opinion.
Right.
Were you willing to take questions from people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm Scott Seeley from Peru. I just wanted to add to what Peggy was talking about, the production tax credits from the federal government.
Yeah.
This project also is in line for renewable energy credits, which we pay as ratepayers. It's on the back of your electric bill, to the tune of, just to put it in perspective, he would be receiving over 20 years, $67 million from our rate bill, which equals out to like $7,500 a day he would be getting in renewable energy credit money. And he's offering the town 40 cents a person per day. So 40 cents per person, he said between 100 to 150. So you take $125,000 and divide it by 860-something people, works out to 40 cents a day per person. And when you do the renewable energy credit formula, he's saying the project would be 40% online. It's a 15 megawatt project. He's saying he can, with the wind, he can operate at 40%, which is 6 megawatts a day. You times that, times 24 hours a day, times 365 days a year, times $64, which is the current rate for a renewable energy credit. And it works out to $3.5 million a year that, just from the renewable energy credit that he'll be getting. That's not selling him electricity, which goes for about $30 a megawatt. And then right now, the production tax credit is on hold by the federal government. They stopped it as of 1st of January. Well, we don't know if he's in line for it because he submitted his permit or not. But he stands to make, millions, over 20 years at $67 million just in renewable energy credits. That's not the production tax credits, and that's not the sale of the electricity. So, these people will say anything, do anything, to get these things in place. And, like Peggy and Kevin have said, that we've done a lot of investigation, we've met a lot of people. I've been down to Falmouth, we've talked to people around the state, people in New York State, where up on Tug Hill, people, a woman from Decatur, Lily Green, has traveled around the world, 14 different countries with her husband. She's a healthcare consultant, and she's interviewed people all around the world, Germany, Austria, all over the place. And the issues that follow these wind farms is, they're all negative issues, but they want to get them in, because of the money. It's so lucrative. They'll actually give the electricity away. These developers, it's insane. So, just to put it in perspective, 40 cents a day is $7,500 a day.
These are all protected by the liars, too, lawyers. All the time, it's unbelievable, this stuff.
It is, and from what kept that was the hard part. The developer was a former senator, came in and said, if you don't elect, if these bylaws changes don't go into effect, I'm gonna have to walk from this project, and we had it on tape, and it was but he said that. He said, there's no way I'll be able to do this project, I'm gonna have to walk away from it. And then it wasn't, a few weeks before he submitted his plan for the variances. So they talk a good talk, and I think the problem is that there are places where wind power makes more sense in desolate areas and flat areas and areas where there's superior wind. So, like Martha's Vineyard, like the Berkshires, and unfortunately, in small hilly towns with this topography, there's not one of these sites that Kevin talked about they're all going to have homes within 1.2 miles. Because we live in our ridge lines, people live in the hills, and the sound travels differently in this kind of topography that's hilly. So we're used to it being so quiet. On one of the websites that we've given you, there's a study by an acoustician, and he said if you can go outside and hear the snow hitting your jacket, your decibel level's about 17 to 20. And I go outside, I can hear the snow hitting on my jacket. When I take my dogs out at night, I hear nothing, maybe one car. And so we live in very quiet places, and in Falmouth, I always love to tell the story, but it just drives me crazy. In Falmouth, there are 2 town-owned turbines, and they're located next to a water treatment plant and a 4-lane highway. And people's lives are ruined. People are abandoning their homes, and they live with this constant noise of a water treatment plant and a 4-lane highway. And so the noise really impacts people in small towns because we're not used to it. And so you're right, the negative health effects are really a big issue.
There's so many points I'd like to make. I'll try to keep it contained. First of all, overall, siting is preeminent of anything. Wind turbines, wind energy is a great resource for renewable energy, but siting is important. I think I have the most direct experience with wind turbines. For years I've run tours of the Searsburg Wind Energy Project in Vermont. I've also run tours of Jiminy Peak's wind energy projects. We go up there on the chairlifts and we get off at the top, and once they shut the chairlifts off, we're at the top of the mountain, we ask the kids, what do you hear? And they don't hear anything. We get a little closer, what do you hear? We hear birds, we hear the wind, we hear an airplane going by. It's not until you're like right underneath it that you hear anything. But those are 2 projects that are not near homes, and I don't advocate that wind turbines should be anywhere near homes. I think the health effects are unfounded. I think they're all fear factor. And it's built up by people who unfortunately are funded by big oil. And there's a lot of non-renewable resources that have a big stake in keeping things in status quo. Another issue is, does anyone here live in houses with big windows? Does anyone here drive a car? You kill a lot more birds and a lot more bats with those two instances than you will ever see with wind turbines. The social justice factor, we get our energy from dirty coal, from oil, from fracking gas, and usually those are all taking place in places where people have a lot less income and a lot less resources than we do. So we don't want them on our ridge tops because we don't want to spoil our view. That's very well and true, and I think that a certain amount of preservation is important. But it's also, where are you going to get your energy? Are you willing to make the sacrifices and make the choices that it takes to use less energy and use cleaner energy, and not just say, oh, well, that happens in, another place, and I don't have to worry about where my coal is being blown off mountaintops in West Virginia, and where they're fracking for natural gas and people can't use their wells anymore. So it's a much bigger picture, I think, than what's being portrayed. And I would just like us all to think about that. But on top of it all, the RECs, the renewable energy credits, are there to provide the incentive that non-renewable resources have had for years. The subsidies allowed to oil and gas and coal companies are huge, and when you compare it to what renewable energy projects are getting, it's apples to oranges. It's not at all something you can compare. And if somebody's willing to put in millions of dollars to promote and build a solar energy project or a wind energy project, and they're getting revenue back from that, well, good for them. I think that our tax dollars should support that, instead of supporting fracking and ruining wells in New York State and Pennsylvania. I could go on, but I will yield the floor.
You mentioned siting. I recall seeing that, at least at the times a couple of years ago, that 2 miles was cited as probably the minimum or maximum circumference that you're the radius that you want from any town. Is that consistent with your thinking?
I don't know if it's 2 miles, I don't know. Like I say, when I go up to Jiminy or when I go up to Searsburg, we're standing like a few hundred feet away, and we don't hear anything, we don't see anything. I mean, you see the turbine, of course, but I think it's more of, I wouldn't want a huge turbine in my backyard, but yet I would support having one in, a place like the State Forest where there already are roads going in. There is no, it's not going to be fragmenting wildlife migration. You've got to look at the site, and it's so site-specific. Whereas solar, yeah, you can put solar on everybody's houses and it all works and everybody benefits. But with wind, yeah, it's a great renewable resource, but it's got to be properly sited.
What do you think of this site? Or do you...
Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to Google it, so I don't know the location of it. But
all these are all the homes within the 2 mile mark that are going to be impacted.
There's a couple issues that really come to my mind when I hear discussions about renewable energy, and I think we all are aware that our planet is, in danger from the use of fossil fuels. Renewable energy is the way of the future. It's not potentially the way of the future. If we don't change the fact that we're burning coal and oil and gas, we're not going to be able, our children are not going to be around to enjoy the freedom we enjoy. One of the things that comes to mind with a project like this, we hear the issues of pilot payments in lieu of taxes. We all know what that happens to that money. That becomes a variable in the cherry sheet of life, and soon to go away. The other thing is the tax credits, as you are aware, and I think I'm aware, come from federal and state funds. And that's basically a bribe with our own money. So you're bribing yourself to do something that someone else will have to do. The third thing, I think this is one of my biggest concerns, these things are machines. And sooner or later, this machine is gonna be obsolete or worn out, or it's gonna need to be taken down, or it's gonna blow down, or something's gonna happen to it. And the functional obsolescence is gonna strike this machine, and there has to be a remedy to disassemble and restore whatever this machine, wherever it's been placed. And we also, in Lincoln County, have a long history of seeing major corporations walk away from their responsibilities. And like, I know, it's a two-letter name, begins with G and E. But they left us a history of doom that really the taxpayers, to a large extent, have to clean up. But they've, put a cursory effect. And once again, I mean, ExxonMobil's done it in Prince William Sound, GE did it in Hoover County. And we don't know where the next spill or the next, ruination is gonna come from, but we have to consider that the siting is imperative. Once again, if you are gonna put up a wind turbine within a certain distance of my home, and you're gonna spoil my rights to enjoyment of that property, that's a legal taking. If you are going to encumber my property with noise, pollution, visual disturbance, then you need to come in and buy the property from me at fair market value. That process is called eminent domain, and it's been in place in the country for something like 200 years.
There are developers that have done that in other wind projects, and they'll buy at fair market value, and then the house gets sold at, a third of the value.
It's standard price, whatever.
But that,
It's eminent domain.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with eminent domain.
And, and many people accuse, it's the NIMBY effect, and I think it's not, when I looked, and I have to say, when I first saw it, I can see the turbines from my house, and I looked and I was excited, and I don't find, it's not the visually, I kind of associated them as the future, and so it's not the visual, but the more that I learned, it was all these other issues, so that had the impact.
Well, I think, once again, many of our issues here are scale. I mean, I think if we were all talking about a 240-foot high window, it may be a lot different than how we feel about a 567-foot window, or a 730-foot window. So scale is important, and then, once again, I don't like the issues of the ridge line, whatever you want to call it, the engineering. I've seen the roads that you need to put in to drag a 137-foot long blade, and the roads are pretty destructive. They do set those up in other areas. They set them with those big Hercules choppers, and they do a pretty good job without having to put in those massive roads.
But even for maintenance, I can pass this around. It's a booklet that shows in Vermont some of the things that have happened in the blasting. And I certainly understand all of your concerns about, other areas and the impact of coal. But I have fear that the wind turbines that are going up, exactly what you said, that they're going to be potentially obsolete, and the amount of money it costs to decommission these are millions of dollars to take them down, and that's part of the bylaws that needs to be thought about, is the decommissioning. And because if the towns are left with that, towns can't afford it. The town of Falmouth would like to decommission their turbines because they've caused so much problem. They can't afford it, and they can't afford the increase in the taxes to do that.
So
There's
there's,
a bill in the state, I'll straighten out for.
there's 22 plus bills in the current session today on the problems with the wind turbines, improper siting. Town of Falmouth specifically, they have a $14 million loan that they took out with federal money to put 2 wind turbines in on town property to offset the cost of their sewage treatment in their public buildings. And within a week after they went up, people started complaining, right, wrong, or different. And I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard that it's only the fear factor thing. There's 47 lawsuits against the town of Falmouth currently. It's gone to court, at least one of them has. They were ordered to shut down the turbines from 7 p.m. at night to 7 a.m. in the morning, not on Sundays and not on Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't know why those two weekends, but They were ordered to shut down. The town of Falmouth now is losing $350,000 a year. They had $1 million in their surplus account, which was from the renewable energy credits that they actually got to pay for maintenance and downtime and things like that. They've used that up, split the town in half. I mean, we can go on. I agree totally that, with the concerns, you go to one. I've been up to Searsburg. I've been to, Jiminy. I've been to Hancock. I've been to a ton of the places. Do you hear them sometimes? Do you always hear them? Not always. When the wind's not spinning, they're not making any noise. That's for sure. Well, what I guess is the biggest concern that I personally have is that what happens when they get put in and unimpacted? Either by health, by property value, by the eminent domain thing that you're talking about. You don't get to take them down. They're up. And you become the one person out of however many that has to fight the big corporation. And it's not going to happen. They're just not going to do it. If you put it in perspective for Peru, they're talking about 5, this one particular project. The entire town uses less power than one of those turbines. These turbines aren't for our use. You can say they are, but only one of them, the entire town uses less than one turbine that they're going to put in Peru. So the more that they bring out, the power is not for here. The power is to go to Boston, to go to New York, it's to go all over. It's spread out.
You can't tell electrons where to
The
go.
gentleman in the back had a question or comment.
I did. Peggy, 2 questions actually, just for scale. The Brody Mountain towers there, how high?
340.
Yeah, it's going to be something, I'm not sure exactly.
200 feet.
They're 1.5 megawatt turbines.
I mean, the
One
one
that's
that's
on any peak is just 600 kilowatts.
No, it's
Not
the
all
same.
that obtrusive up there, but
On Jiminy, then they bought it. Okay, so
No,
that's,
it's exactly the same.
okay, so that's half the size of what they're putting in Peru.
my other question is, I was under the assumption, my limited knowledge, that all these projects are built on private property, Jiminy, Brody Mountain, above Clarksburg there. But you brought up state property, which I just kind of assumed was off limits, but you're telling me it's not. Okay. What's the process the state would have to go to build property on, quote unquote, their property?
DPU site,
They just had a hearing at DCC. They had 5 hearings around the state, to get input from people. They're trying to do an end run around that bill that Kevin was talking about, the WESRA, the Wind Energy Study and Reform Act, where it puts it in the hands of the DPU, takes all the local control away. So people in Boston can, say, well, we're going to site turbines here.
That's not,
It's
that's not true.
supposedly voluntary they're saying they're gonna be voluntary recommendations for regulations, but, the fear is that the control could be taken more away from the local towns.
Steve, did you have a comment?
Yeah, as you know, I'm an advocate for renewable energy. Along with solar, I also believe that wind has a place appropriately. The question is what's appropriate. We talked a lot about siting, which is a really critical issue. I didn't get your name. What was your name?
Peggy White?
No, Peggy. No, you're.
Cynthia Grapaldi.
Pardon?
Cynthia Grapaldi.
Okay, and you did say that you wouldn't want a wind turbine in your backyard.
It's not my backyard, no. Probably
You
so.
also said that you don't know anything about the site in Peru.
Right.
So why are you advocating that site in Peru have wind turbines?
I never said
I don't
that.
think she expressed her opinion, Steve. I think it's fair.
Well, no, I think it's fair to question somebody when they express an opinion. This is a discussion, a hearing, whatever you want to call it.
Understand where she's coming from. It'd probably be best to do this together after the meeting.
Right.
No, I'm just pointing
I understand what you're
out.
saying, but I'm not sure that's the.
This is not an ad hominem attack. I'm pointing out that she's advocating for wind. The question here is wind turbines on Garnet Hill. So if you want to address the question of wind turbines on Garnet Hill, then do that, but be aware of what the impact of Garnet Hill is in this community. You also said that there are roads that are built through state forests. Anybody drive through October Mountain State Forest recently? We know what those roads are like. They're tiny, they disappear sometimes. If you started building them in there, the massive amount of construction just destroyed that place.
And I'll agree with you that if Cynthia, if you'd said you reviewed the site, it would have made a more powerful argument, but you had another comment.
I know, I'm just, two things I'd like to make a point of, and you would know better than this, but the Wind Energy Siting Reform Act specifically says that there is local input into siting. It's not a total control of the DPU. And the other thing is, when you say that the energy is going to Boston, you can't tell electrons where they're going to go. Okay, we have the
Excuse
Brody.
me, that's not
Excuse me,
true.
I'm not finished.
Please.
In Brody, it's municipally owned, and the investors are from out of town, the credits go to out of town, but once those electrons hit the wires, they're going to us. They're going to the people in Hancock, and they're going to everywhere else. They're not saying, oh, you're going to go to Boston. We're all reaping the benefit of renewable energy. They're getting the financial benefits, but electrons are electrons. Wherever they go, we all benefit.
Brody is owned by a municipal lighting plant cooperative. All the towns are in eastern Massachusetts.
Right.
They are the beneficiaries of it.
Financially.
Financially, but.
The electricity is
it goes
not
into the
being
grid.
used in Hancock.
Yes,
So,
Electricity, electrons are electrons, but it's a question, you turn on a light, where do those electrons come from? Who the heck knows? But the fact is that the beneficiary of Brody Mountain are 16 towns in eastern Massachusetts, and we're just a convenient spot to put them.
Mr. Case.
Not an opinion, just two concerns. One is, before they ever even talked about the Berkshires with wind turbines, and I alluded to it before, they were talking about off Cape Cod. The people down there absolutely shut it down. There's no way it's going there. It wouldn't have bothered anybody except for the boats going by. Right? Now the focus is shifted to that in the Berkshires. I have a concern for that. The second thing is, we live with pilot funds in the town of Washington. And we all know, anybody that knows anything about the finances here, how the state screws us year after year after year. So when somebody throws pilot funds out at me, it carries no weight with me whatsoever. That's all I'm saying.
You can't get a rate kit.
No?
Yes.
I could add just one more thing. I think one of the benefits of living here, and I include you as well, we all have a tremendous love for the renewable, the natural, the air, the clean. I mean, how many people who live here don't walk out the door at night on one of those crystal clear winter nights and go, wow, look at the stars. I mean, there's no other place on the planet I don't think we see what we see. I mean, so we all have a concern. And I really think we're on the same team in so many ways. Nobody here sees a future in oil, gas, and coal. And, I think we all have a heavy heart when we think about mountaintop removal and fracking, the Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf. And, it's how to do it in a way that respects our resources locally. It's, think global, act local. And it's a way to do it in a way that's manageable and not, once again, doesn't unequally impact the people in the Berkshires and ruins our natural resources, just like if they were blowing the top off our mountain to extract coal. We wouldn't let that happen either. So that's the important thing.
And I agree, for instance, in Woods Hole, near Falmouth, they have a 100-foot tower that generates electricity, if I understand right, for the whole marine biology center, and that really doesn't create a lot of problems. And so it really is all about the scale. So it's back to that book, if you remember from the 70s, Small is Beautiful. If we could rethink exactly how things are done, and money was sent that way, and towns could have smaller towers that could generate and could help. The concern that we certainly have with the large turbines is the actual negative, what we understand is the negative carbon footprint, because the coal plants have to fire down when the wind is blowing, and then when the wind stops, it takes a lot more energy to get that plant up and running again, and then so this lowering down and firing up actually takes more energy from the coal plants than if the wind turbines weren't there at all. So that's So it's such a confusing, conflicting issue. And the more we learn, the more confusing sometimes it gets, because you really do have those same goals in mind, but I don't want to be supporting something that actually is not that efficient and really is actually doing the opposite of what we may think it is doing.
Does anybody, yeah, good.
I think, adding to that, a lot of that has to do also with profits. You know, it kind of interferes with making the thing actually do its thing, you know, its mission that it's set out to accomplish. And that would be, and that stuff is very important, almost first and foremost for everybody to really come together on, is it's like, you know, it makes me think back to the time, and remember they wanted to make the big dump station there? I mean, that was the mob that we sent out here, you know, to tell between the legs, and it was like, you can do the same thing with the state people. It's like, look at it, you know, some things gotta change, you know, because these things, being a mechanic myself, I mean, there's gotta be something that can be done to these things so they're not such a nuisance with what is, you know, the complaints, the health complaints, the noise and all that stuff, you know, like gigantic rubber mounts or something for the motors and turbines, however these things are set up, I'm not really sure, but they can no doubt be improved upon, you know, but that would take somebody's profits.
Well, there actually is something that I just read last night on the Vermont for Clean Energy website, that it was she called it the gray box. And I think it was, I don't know, it's $1 million or $2 million, but it's some way of dampening the sound.
Yeah.
That is on the vermontwind.info.
That stuff is always available. You can take anything and make it work really
Is that
good.
gonna be obsolete
It just
in
takes
10 years
money.
from now? Oh, we found the perfect one, so these other ones are no good.
But that's a very important thing, like, you know, these BCC meetings, I mean, that could be on the front news, you know, cover the Eagle instead of the Grammys and football, you know what I mean? Just think of it, give them food and service and you can control them all. So think about it. You know, that's why nobody knows about stuff either.
Well, they did pretty good coverage, actually. The Berkshire had a pretty good article about that hearing, and it was, being there was interesting to really hear the stories of the people whose lives are impacted health-wise. Today, there was a letter to the editor by Larry LaRusso, who lives in Clarksburg, and then there are people that are up on Florida Mountain who have abandoned their homes. They spoke very heartfelt at the hearing, unfortunately. So
The high wind speeds in the state, off the Cape, and in Berkshire. One meeting by the DPU in Berkshire. The other 4 or 5 were at the eastern end of the state.
I just wonder if there's real data about the health issues.
Yep.
Because, yeah, I haven't seen it, I've heard it.
Shelburnwind.info is a website, and there is a study from an acoustician there, and as he said, a lot of people have said it's annoyance, but annoyance is a medical term, meaning that you are not able to conduct your life as you normally are. And he said the way that we know the health effects from sound are real is that you can study people, and where it's noisiest, there's more complaints. If it was only a visible or a nervous thing, or it bothers me, then your complaint should go out within the radius of who can see it. But he's actually done studies that show that the complaints are higher within the certain siting. So it's a very good speech. Rand.
In the handout, you list the number of studies, so we'll have this handout available, you know, to whoever wants it. Are there any other comments for the politic body at large? Yes,
We'll get John to put that on the town website. Get John to put that on the town website.
Yeah, I mean, if you could provide us with e-copies of this, we'll put it on the town website, sure.
Yep. And then I also have several copies of the handout just with websites down below for the Vermont, what's happening in Vermont, Shelburne. But just the last thing that I forgot to mention, really why we're here is just to let people know there will be a public hearing at some point, and we would love if people would come and express their concern, because it does have an impact on Washington, so we would love to have surrounding towns come to that public hearing. The date is to be determined, and certainly as as exhibited here and with our town, there are many different opinions, so towns may not want to come out with a statement, but that was something that, if there was something as even a consensus that could be presented to the meeting.
Sure.
Do you want to pass around a piece of paper for email addresses?
Yeah, we would like, I have
Or, and the other quick question is, you want to take the reference sheet, go through our copier, we study copies?
We'll post it on the town website, if that's okay. I mean, you're perfectly welcome to make copies, we don't
Are
charge.
you assuming that we all went to the town website and paid the There's a really interesting solar farm, by the way, on the turnpike. I think we saw on the right-hand side, and the south side is, I mean, it's gotta be, no joke, 40 or 50 acres of panels in what appears to be a former hayfield. And it's right on the side of the turn, it's pretty interesting.
in Adams, you know, in Adams where the town highway department is on George Wood Road from the, I think it's called from the Savoy side, they put a whole many acres of solar panel there, so you're right.
Yeah, there's, in combination.
So,
Just in relation to talking about websites and information on the interweb and how reliable all that all can be, I would just like to urge.
One meeting, please, just one meeting.
I would just like to urge everyone to balance out what you might read on the internet, to actually go to Searsburg or go to Jiminy and actually experience a wind generator up close and make your own opinion, because I feel that that's much more powerful than conflicting opinions and internet.
I think, and I'll address this to you, Carol, it seems like we should be talking to Berkshire Regional Planning about getting a commercial bylaw, commercial wind bylaw, which should include, minimum radius for siting, decommissioning bond, and perhaps restrictions on noise and height. So I think we should be looking at those four things. I'll just repeat that. Siting setback requirement for any homes. I think from my reading, it should be at least 2 miles. But, again, Berkshire Regional Planning has.
They have,
so doesn't the state have
Decommissioning require a decommissioning bond. And also noise and height restrictions. I think it's something we should be doing as soon as possible.
One of our main focuses was to get out to the adjoining towns so that you don't go through what we are suffering through. It divides the town. You can kind of hear it already.
Appreciate that heads up.
People that don't.
It's interesting in Richmond, right around the western, southwestern view, right around the governor's house, there's an interesting mountain. I'm not sure if that's within our plan.
They actually.
We get enough politicians together there, we wouldn't need to.
That's really what squashed the wind farm.
you wouldn't need any wind if you wanted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in, I'm sure,
Yeah, if you need anything.
I'm sure you'd be glad to start pending our citizens who are.
I think the contractor can only make $85,000 a year, that'll send them home.
Thank you all for coming in, by the way.
Caps, baby.
Does anybody have any other issues?
Who's gonna be there?
He's gonna think that we're not talking about basketball.
this would be sad, if it didn't bring back my generation, business, residential waste, or a person was saving money at their house. That guy called me 3 weeks ago. I had a house on East Mike Road, you know, right? He says,
Let's see, we're talking about these PCs, do we have enough? There should be enough for town maintenance to cover this.
Money's no object.
Please stay outside, thank you.
Probably should be.
35 years old. Okay?
Which doesn't have much money. It's like 1,000.
Yeah, we can transfer from,
I don't know why, or just do it under stress, because it is get there.
You maintain something.
I don't know that we need to vote on this, I guess we'll hold to it. Is any indication? This should be done by.
Did I miss the citizens input? I didn't want to hold that. Oh, that's not. The citizens input this way. You know, that's usually the beginning. Just raise your hand, it happens anytime.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The Cross Place Road Bridge.
Yep.
Here's something else maybe to think about. I mean, I'm no engineer.
We're not putting a tunnel.
Now what?
Putting a tunnel in.
No.
More expensive.
But you're close.
You want a wind turbine by
Put a tunnel with
That
no
little
top.
stream, it's north of Cross Place Road.
Right.
Just before it comes under the bridge. Could easily be diverted to Main Street. You wouldn't need a bridge.
You can't change the course of the
Oh,
stream.
my
You
heavens.
know,
You get a little channel.
No, no.
Not technical.
You can do it, you may not do it. It's gonna cost 15 years.
45 years ago you
Right, the EPA.
We could get a coal plant in this town sooner, we could do that.
All right, let's do that. Well, no, I didn't have to think about that. I drive over that bridge several times a day. I just almost
It's
ran
getting
into
old,
the
it's getting old,
railroad.
going up and down.
Incredible.
But we can go.
No matter what.
We need a permit to even think about it.
Specs, yeah.
Yeah, got a backhoe in there.
We have a permit to think about it.
Let's talk to Phil.
Maybe we should get some beaver in there, get some beaver to, build the dam.
You need a raft.
All right, well.
You need a raft. Fair.
Listen, then you won't get me. Just package deal. Gets it over either.
No, you should be able to. That's easy solution. That's done. Divert it, gravel it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the conservation issue. It's just like, go over there and say, just make that go over there.
You got a ramp on one side, a ramp on the other.
Strange.
You gotta coerce the beavers into doing it, then it's okay.
Yeah, you need a ramp on each side. Nothing in the middle, just need a ramp. And then you need a minimum speed. Minimum speed is 55.
I don't know, but you know, it's a little weather decent.
I know, I drive in the morning. Can you look at the rearview mirror and see 20 cars? A minute or two?
Mine were made by GE.
There he is.
Now,
Cornell, how are we doing? Good. When are you actually going on vacation?
March 1st.
March 1st.
When they go off next week.
I sent some files off, well, a couple things. I sent some files off to Rebecca. She was gonna take a look at it, see if they're any use. They're the extract files from Vadar. John Les wasn't able to craft the code to try and get in into the details. So we just did an extraction. I don't think it's gonna be very useful, but I sent it to her. So she's gonna take a look at it. I got back to Vadar and asked them maintenance fees. It's a joke. They want $3,000 a year. They want $3,000 a year, which includes capital and maintenance. And now that we're done paying for the capital, they still want $3,000 a year. So,
Well, I'm sure we can send him a check.
well, I just said it was for the budget. It's all the more reason why I hope this other thing works out. I mean, we're supposed to hear this month whether we get the grant. So if we get the grant, if we don't get the grant, then we gotta make a decision. Do we wanna try and use Hanover for a year and build up a new chart of accounts and try it? The thing is, it's not supported. No, I don't think, I mean, the stuff I went through this week with Vadar, I really don't wanna go through another experience with it. Hanover's got a new system. The system that's sitting out there is an access database that they used to use that was built by the guy who was Department of Public Works for Hanover. He uses it for the highway department. It's not being used by any other town. That's what I mean. It's the support is him saying, yeah, I can do that modification for you. So it's a little, it scares me a little bit when I look at the support I get out of Vadar. I mean, I had problems this week trying to balance it. I call them up for advice. They tell me, oh yeah, that's what you do. I do it, and it does exactly opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish. They're like, I'll show them Glenn today, a balanced journal entry. With the balanced journal entry in, my journal entry is out of balance by the amount of the journal entry. It does these crazy entries on the backside that sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. It's been doing it It's a private accounting system. And so I spend more time trying to get the general ledger balanced in closing it than I do doing analysis. And it's frustrating. I was here this week, budget entries were throwing it off, and I couldn't figure out why. I finally figured that out. But so it's
spend money, whatever money we need to develop either our own or.
yeah. Well,
I hate to go with Samaria because the amount of money involved. I'd rather pay you.
SoftWrite, yeah.
Software.
Well, I say let's wait till the end of the month and cross our fingers that the grant gets approved. And then if the grant gets approved and the CSC is going to use it, then at least we know the Hanover system is going to be used eventually and will be supported. So then we can go on it this year. If it turns out it falls apart because they can't get it to work next year, then we go to software. But so we got to this month to figure out what's going on. My last resort would be to stay with data.
Any closer to closing?
Actually, I got a lot. I got the general ledger balance this week, so now I'm going to start filling out the Schedule A, and maybe by next week I'll have an idea of what, if any, free cash we might have. I mean, I looked at it real close. It doesn't look like we got a lot of free cash at all. We spent a lot. Yeah, we're real close, but it's too soon for me until I start.
Sailors up there, what would you do without it?
Well, at least this will provide some restraint if it's close.
I thought we'd have free cash this year because we got the lawsuit, but it looks like revenue is down compared to spending. And I know we spent a lot in the last couple of years, so.
Yeah. Those guys on the finance committee, pushing stuff on.
But I'm looking at the spending as I sit here. It's the windows and the doors. That was a lot of money. So let me get the Schedule A filled out this week, and by next week I'll have an idea of where free cash might look. So, but having the general ledger balance is an accomplishment.
Are you going to sign this thing?
Where are you going on vacation?
Huh?
Where are you going on vacation?
Well, Jim, we gotta.
We're just going out to Carolina, we're going out to Oak Island for a month.
Everything's on the up and
It's
up.
a barrier island below.
No, it's,
It's supposed to be 60 degrees. That's fine by me.
Jeremiah's in there.
you get your money paid. That's it.
Yep.
The last thing we want to do is not take a
Oh, yeah. Learner, you know what? Sally Bell passed away, huh?
Yeah, she passed away.
Yeah,
I'd
in
say about 6 months
2013.
ago. Yeah, it was about 6 months ago. I hadn't seen her for years and years and years,
She's been around forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
It's got the school. Oh, and I have a bill for Ed Bond. Remember I had said that any time that somebody asks for expenses for them or pay for themselves, I wanted you guys to approve it. So Ed put up all these lines and stuff, so I got a bill, I'll bring it in.
Yeah.
I can put it in next week.
I helped him one month, that was about a year ago.
Jim, for your
He
other.
finally gave me a bill?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, no, he's here today, he was putting them up,
Where?
down in the tax department.
Oh, down that way.
Yeah.
For your other half, the finance committee.
Oh, I heard from,
Yeah,
February
PUA.
25th is the seventh town meeting.
They called me. Yeah.
Oh, for the school district? That's the one where you go for the initial budget request?
I have somebody else sort of thought
It's
about it.
ugly.
They called me, come on,
What's
come on,
going on
bill.
back? I mean, they can't do
I
anything
didn't answer
other
the
than
first
just
time.
let the legislature
I've been
reallocate, they can't
expecting
come
you to
back.
call back. So he called back and I
It's
answered.
probably, unless that
I
passes
should've
his
put it on
way,
hold.
it's
Yeah,
gonna
put it
go
on
He told all our representatives.
it's gonna go into $207,000.
So were you able to
Unless you
make
guys are
progress
spending
on that?
He said they were gonna look that over.
If we,
And he was gonna
if
get
we
back.
set the assessment at 4.5%.
Maybe his name and
you can
his
go
private
below.
number to reach out.
If we raise.
4.5%.
Richard Sarni.
We're still $1 million short.
He said he'd be
For level fund,
working the issues.
it's gonna be.
Well, now you
Oh,
got somebody down.
What
there.
about your contingency and deviation?
Anything else?
We're using,
Yeah.
Wow.
it's gonna be.
I guess like that, we weren't the only people having
Just a
problems.
matter of how we-
Although
Wow.
It seemed like
And
most
Becky
of the
usually gets
problems
a
were-
bigger percentage of the pie because it's considered a wealthy community.
Oh, I think, yeah, both sides.
So Patrick gets it all,
You know, when it comes when it
so
starts,
we'll get,
it's not really a municipality. It's a-
wow. February 25th?
25th, and that's because
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
we're
Sure
here.
of that.
Yeah, we'll get hit this year.
I don't know if you saw it or not, Dalton sent us a letter.
Oh, that was-
They wanted their 1.5 back.
Oh, yeah, they wanted us to get charged for our 200,000 that we didn't get charged last year, which is out of the control of the school. Oh, they always, they're always.
I haven't, I've looked at their budget, I don't know where everybody goes. They don't have anything
Exceptional. The school is a big piece of it, but they got a lot of kids. Yeah, but they don't have, they don't have garbage collection, they don't have a full-time fire department.
Well, now they don't get that good deal as far as last time Savannah was moving.
Why, we
You gotta be kidding.
He used to have, chairman of the select board, but he had the contract to do all the sidewalks in the town. No contract.
Jody, how you
Oh, yeah.
feeling?
No contract.
That's a little interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have $100 for septic home improvement. JSS and all that. And, yeah, just tell John to go ahead with that permit. And anything else you need to bring up?
If there is, I don't have any recollection of it.
All right. We've got, we'll meet next week and then we're not going to meet the following week. So. And we will not have the pleasure of Mr. Casey's company next week.
That's real mature for the chairman of the school board.
Whoever said I was
You
sure.
better watch it, every cutie.
That's why I'm not here, is because it's.
good.
$45 an hour.
I do, I'm just
No.
They're killing us.
if you want to put a label on it. I got the.
Blaming on big
I
expense.
had to order. It's the town.
All right.
Order it.
Dan, and that's it. And I will make a motion to absolve the meeting.
Wow, that was quick.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, see you next week.
Next
Same
week.
time next week?
I'll, you know how it makes up.
I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Meetings and stuff.
Oh, I just didn't know, is the town in support, gonna support Peru in, their
Oh, no, there's only a handful.
To individual citizens who want to go out there and go to the public meeting.
Oh, we don't as a town take a position by their.
No, that's kind of shaky business, I think. Because I could go and represent us, as I'm representing the town of Washington, and there'll be at least 3 people in this audience that shoot, regardless of what I said. Whether it's for or against, it doesn't matter.
Well, what I was
If I took what we would have to do really is create a resolution and ask the voters to resolve that the town of Washington will.
I was a little disturbed that someone could do something in another town and have part of the research or whatever, like it reaches over into ours. There should be like, some kind of border or a line, like you can't put a well near a septic. You can't put this here if you don't get approval from this town.
Well,
It reaches us.
If there was a real sense that some of our citizens were impacted, that might be different.
That'd be different.
That would be different. In one sense, we're not doing it, except that it's likely to be a much larger fight.
Very shocking.
Much larger.
Another thing about that whole conversation, now that we're talking basketball, the balls went by. I don't even know who it was, but I think it was City State Commercial. They don't want the hunters, they don't want the ATVs, and they don't want the snowmobiles, but we can put in 500 foot.
Well, I suspect that when we get a new administration, which will be 2 more, they might not be quite And to tell you the truth, I was kind of gung ho about this at first, and I was trying to get guys down there at the state to, hey, what are you guys doing? Come on, what are the flight hours?
Jim, everybody throws back those cash cards as if it's money from someone else. That's out of our pocket.
It's our dough. It's our money. Solar farms.
Your opinion.
Quiet. Solar's quiet, it's
Nuke the whales.
solar's quiet.
Cody went back to school today, went on antibiotics. 4 or 5 days down. Her throat's looking good, it's all looking good. Jessica, my little trooper, she's just managing every day. Get her monitor, make her go high. She's just a baby.
I assume we could.
She don't get sick, yeah, unless you want to give you a lowdown about the health of my family.
If you want it,
Household.
if you want to.
Give you a lowdown on the cold.